Spring Ridge, Texas. A quiet southern town where front porches creaked with old stories and the sweet smell of pecan pie drifted through the air on Sunday afternoons. To everyone on Willow Lane, the Walkers were a dream. Mark, the charming architect with the southern manners. Linda, a graceful, nurturing woman who baked too much and worried too often. And Emily, her bright 19-year-old daughter from a previous marriage. Clever, kind, the kind of girl who made people say, "You raised her right." From the outside, they had it all. But Texas heat has a way of bringing hidden things to the surface. Linda Walker thought she'd finally found her second chance at happiness. She was wrong. She came home early from a work trip. No lights on. The house was too quiet. A hallway, a door, a sound. And then, everything fell apart. Her husband, her daughter, in bed, together. She didn't scream. She didn't confront them. She walked out the door. And in that silence, a storm was born. Linda Walker drove all night. The empty roads around Spring Ridge rolled out under the haze of street lamps and pickup trucks idling at closed gas stations. She didn't cry, didn't scream. She just drove. One hand gripping the wheel, the other clenched tight in her lap. Her thoughts were shattered glass, jagged, flashing, impossible to gather. How long? How long had it been going on? Emily was just a child, her child. And Mark? He was supposed to be the man who helped rebuild their broken world. He wasn't just her husband. He was the man who'd told her he'd protect Emily, that he'd never hurt them, that they were family. But what she saw upstairs, that wasn't family. That was betrayal. By sunrise, Linda was sitting in the parking lot of an all-night diner off Route 18, staring blankly at the menu glowing in the window. Inside, a waitress poured coffee for a man in oil-stained jeans. A radio hummed an old George Strait song. The world hadn't changed, but she had. She didn't go home that morning. Not really. She returned to the house. But home was gone. She walked in like nothing had happened. Mark greeted her with a smile, kissed her on the cheek. Emily appeared a moment later, rubbing her eyes, wearing one of Linda's old college t-shirts like she had so many times before. They acted like everything was fine. But Linda, she saw it now. Every glance, every touch, every lie hidden behind casual smiles. And so, she played along. Over the next few days, Linda became someone else. She cooked breakfast, laughed at jokes, kissed Mark goodnight. But behind her smile, something darker stirred. She started watching them. At first, it was small things. Emily blushing too quickly, Mark texting at night and flipping his phone screen down, the way they avoided eye contact at the dinner table. It was all so careful, so rehearsed, but not careful enough. Linda began checking Mark's phone while he showered. She learned the passcode in one try. Emily's birthday. That cut deeper than anything. Inside, she found it all. Messages, photos. I miss you already. You smell like sunshine. Can't wait until we're alone again. She downloaded everything, saved copies, printed them at a friend's office printer under the pretense of a church fundraiser. She was quiet, methodical, calculating, and not once did she cry. She couldn't afford to. That's what they wanted, wasn't it? For her to fall apart, to disappear quietly. But Linda Walker was not built to break. She was built to endure. Emily, once her little girl, who used to leave crayon drawings on the fridge, now walked around the house like a stranger. She avoided eye contact, avoided conversation. Sometimes she'd flinch when Linda touched her shoulder. That guilt? It was real, and Linda could smell it. One night, Mark brought home takeout from Emily's favorite place. A subtle gift, a secret apology. Linda watched her daughter's face flush as she took the food. Their fingers brushed, a twitch in their smiles, 1,000 tiny betrayals in a single second. That night, Linda didn't sleep. She sat in her room, staring at the ceiling fan, listening to the walls breathe. Her mind had gone quiet now, not panicked or spinning, just sharp, focused. She'd devoted her entire life to these two people, and now they'd made her a ghost in her own home. No, not a ghost, a weapon. She didn't want justice. She wanted ruin. Revenge didn't come to Linda Walker like a flash of lightning. It came slowly, quietly, like a storm building behind her ribs. She didn't throw things, didn't scream into her pillow, didn't break down in the shower. Instead, she cleaned the house. She folded Mark's shirts with surgical precision. She made Emily's bed just the way her daughter liked it. Pillows fluffed, corners tucked. She packed lunches. She watered the plants. She smiled when spoken to. On the surface, she was still the same Linda, but inside, something had shifted. She began to isolate herself, gradually and without raising suspicion. She declined dinner invites, claimed she had a headache, worked late at the community center, then stopped going altogether. Her friends texted, called. She didn't answer. She started documenting Mark's routines, Emily's texts, the way their timelines didn't quite match up. She had a folder labeled garden plans on her laptop, but inside it was a collection of screenshots, copied texts, photos printed in black and white. She memorized details, dates, timestamps, subtle body language. She watched them like a scientist observes specimens, calm, detached. And then came the cabin. It was Mark's idea, actually. "I've been thinking," he said one morning over coffee. "We should take a weekend away, just us, somewhere quiet, to reconnect." Linda looked up, smiled, and nodded. Inside, her pulse quickened. The timing was perfect. She remembered the cabin from years ago, tucked deep in the woods 2 hours outside of Spring Ridge. No cell signal, no neighbors, no one for miles. It was where they'd spent their anniversary once, back when things still felt real. Now, it would serve a different purpose. She told Mark it sounded wonderful. Told Emily they could roast marshmallows and watch the stars. She even went shopping, bought snacks, extra blankets, a new red sweater she didn't need. She wanted them relaxed, comfortable, off guard. She needed them to trust her again. Before she took everything from them, the week before the trip, she visited a pharmacy 2 towns over. Paid cash. Said it was for her insomnia. She left with a small brown bottle, unmarked except for the pharmacist's scrawl, Zaloplan, a potent sedative. She didn't hesitate. Back home, she packed the wine herself. Mark's favorite Cabernet, Emily's favorite Merlot. She tested the dosage 3 times, just enough to knock them out, not enough to kill. Not yet. That Friday, they set off just after noon. The sun was high and the skies were clean, a perfect Texas sky. Mark drove. Emily played music. Linda sat in the back seat, her fingers lightly tracing the edge of the wine bottle wrapped in a towel. They laughed. They sang along. They had no idea As the cabin came into view, weathered wood, porch swing creaking in the breeze, Linda felt a strange calm settle over her. She was done grieving, done wondering why. All that was left was execution. They unpacked, lit a fire, cooked chili on the old gas stove. Mark poured drinks. Emily set the table. Linda watched them, every movement, every smile, every lie. After dinner, Mark suggested a game of cards. Emily laughed and threw a blanket around her shoulders. Linda sipped water. She needed her hand steady, her mind sharp. They didn't notice her silence. They never had. Later, Linda brought out the wine. "One last toast," she said softly, "to family." She poured carefully, handed each of them a glass, sat down across from them as the fire cracked and flickered. They raised their glasses. They drank, and slowly the sedative began to work. Mark was the first to slump. Emily followed, her limbs heavy, her eyes confused. "Mom?" she whispered as her head tilted back. Linda stood, steady, cold, and for the first time in weeks, she smiled. They woke slowly. Mark stirred first, his eyelids fluttering open like a man rising from a deep sleep. He tried to sit up, but couldn't. His arms were tied, wrists bound to the legs of the wooden chair beneath him. A soft groan escaped his throat. "Linda?" he mumbled, groggy. "What the hell?" Emily woke next. Her head lolled to one side. Strands of hair stuck to her damp cheek. She blinked, disoriented, then panicked. She struggled, only to find her own wrists tied, ankles secured to the legs of the old cabin sofa. "Mom?" she gasped, her voice cracking. "What's happening?" Linda didn't answer. She sat across from them in a worn armchair, calm, unmoving, dead-eyed. A small fire flickered behind her. Shadows danced across her face. In her lap was a leather folder, fat, heavy, full of truth. "I thought," Linda said, finally breaking the silence, "we could talk." Mark's breathing grew ragged. "What did you do? What the hell is this?" She opened the folder and began laying the contents out on the table between them. Pages of text messages, printed photographs, emails. Emily's face went pale. Mark stared in silence, jaw clenched. Linda's voice stayed level, cold. "How long?" Neither answered. She raised her voice. "How long have you been sleeping with her, Mark?" Mark looked away. Linda turned to Emily. "You, my daughter, you had every ounce of my love, every bit of safety I had left in this world, and you gave yourself to him, willingly." "How long?" Emily sobbed. "I didn't mean, Mom, I didn't know what I was doing. He said, "Don't," Linda cut in, voice like a blade. "Don't put this on him or on me. You both knew." The room fell silent again, except for the fire's crackle. Mark finally spoke. "I was weak," he whispered. "It was a mistake." "A mistake?" Linda echoed. "You call a year-long affair with my daughter a mistake?" He looked down, ashamed. Linda stood slowly, walked over to the fireplace, and stared into the flames. "Do you know what betrayal feels like, Mark?" she said, voice low. "It's not like in the movies. There's no dramatic gasp, no crying on the floor. It's quiet, like something inside you dies." She turned. "Do you know what I wanted to do? At first?" Her voice wavered. "I wanted to run, vanish, leave this place and never come back. But then I thought, no, they don't get to walk away untouched. Not after this." She stepped closer. Mark flinched. Emily was crying harder now. "You stole my life," Linda hissed. You both did, and I'm going to make sure you feel every ounce of what you've done. She reached into the drawer of the cabin desk, pulled out a kitchen knife. It glinted in the firelight. Mark struggled in the chair. Linda, please don't do this. Think about what you're doing. I've been thinking, she said, her voice almost calm. Thinking for weeks. Planning, watching, waiting. And now? She walked over to Emily, raised the knife, hand trembling. Emily's eyes widened in pure terror. Mom, no, please. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. The blade hovered. Linda stared down at her, and for one long breaking second, she didn't move. Her whole body trembled. A sob escaped her lips. She stepped back, dropped the knife. It hit the floor with a dull clunk, and then silence. For the first time, Linda looked like a human being again. Not a storm, not a shell. Just a mother. Devastated. Empty. She sank to the floor, shaking. Mark was whispering something, but she couldn't hear him. Emily cried softly behind her. Linda covered her face with both hands and screamed, not in anger, but in pain. The kind that claws from your throat when there's nothing left to lose. She couldn't do it. She couldn't kill her daughter, not even after all of it. Linda Walker didn't know how long she sat on the cabin floor, her hands covering her face, tears leaking between her fingers. Time seemed suspended. Mark said nothing. Emily cried quietly, curled into herself like a child. The fire had died down to soft, glowing embers. The knife lay between them like a memory they could never erase. Finally, Linda stood. She didn't look at them. Her hands shook as she untied the knots. One by one, Emily's wrists, then her ankles, then Mark's. No words, just movement. They were free, but nobody moved. When Linda finally spoke, her voice was barely more than a whisper. I don't know who I am anymore. Emily covered her mouth, sobbing harder. Mark stood, rubbing his wrists. Linda, I'm so sorry. Linda turned away. Don't. Just don't. She walked outside. The air was sharp and clean. 1,000 stars scattered across the black Texas sky. The trees whispered in the wind, ancient and indifferent. She walked barefoot down the trail behind the cabin, gravel pressing into her skin. There was a cliff at the end, overlooking a dried-up riverbed. They used to sit there, back when things were good, when Emily was 10, when Mark still felt like a gift, not a curse. She stood at the edge, and for one terrible second she wondered, would it be easier to fall? But something inside her resisted. She had come so close to destroying everything, to becoming something she could never undo. And yet, she didn't cross that line. She could still choose. So Linda turned back. When she returned to the cabin, the lights were dim. Emily was on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, eyes swollen and red. Mark was sitting at the table, unmoving. They looked up, startled. Linda walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, drank it. Then, finally, she spoke. I'm leaving. Neither of them said anything. I need to go somewhere, where I don't see reminders of what you did, where I can breathe. She looked at Emily. You'll always be my daughter, but I can't be near you right now. I just can't. Emily nodded slowly. Her mouth opened, but no words came. Linda picked up her bag, walked to the door. She paused for a moment, hand on the knob. I'm not doing this because I forgive you, she said. I'm doing this because if I stay, I'll become someone I can't live with. Then she walked out, into the night, into something unknown, but her own. 6 months later, Linda was living in a small town in West Texas. No one knew her name. She worked at a local bookstore, lived in a modest apartment above a bakery, and spent her mornings walking the desert trails. She wrote in a journal every night. Letters mostly, never sent. Pages and pages addressed to Emily. One day, an envelope arrived. From Spring Ridge. Inside, a single letter. No return address. Dear Mom, there's not a day I don't think about what I did. I was stupid, lost. I hated myself for what happened. Still do. But I want you to know, I never stopped loving you. I hope someday we can talk again. I'm working on myself. I hope you are too. Love, Emily. Linda read it again and again. Then she cried. It wasn't joy, not yet. But it was something new, something like hope. Sometimes, the deepest wounds don't come from strangers. They come from the people we trust the most. Linda Walker's story is not just about betrayal. It's about what betrayal does to the human heart. It strips away certainty. It breaks the sacred. But more importantly, it forces us to face who we really are when everything falls apart. You may never go through something as extreme as Linda did, but many of us know what it feels like to be betrayed, to feel invisible, to question our own worth because of someone else's choices. And in that pain, we often stand at a crossroads. Will we let it consume us? Or will we walk away? Scarred? Yes, but still whole. Linda stood on the edge, literally and emotionally. She could have destroyed everything. Instead, she chose something much harder. She walked away, not out of weakness, but out of strength. Because real strength is not in revenge. It's in restraint. It's in knowing when to say, this ends here, not with blood, but with healing. If this story taught us anything, it's that forgiveness isn't always about others. Sometimes, it's about saving yourself. If this story stirred something in you, if it made you think about the weight of betrayal or the strength it takes to walk away, you're not alone. So many of us carry invisible wounds, but stories like Linda's remind us healing is possible, even from the deepest kind of pain. If you've ever had to choose between holding on or letting go, between revenge or resilience, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below. Have you ever faced a moment like this? What would you have done in Linda's place? And if this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who might need to hear it today. Because sometimes, the right story comes at the right time. Take care, and we'll see you in the next one.